let's create a new one, and let's call this one standing death. Now, if you might remember, death was actually an Anim sequence, but it was also an array. So let's make that an array. Here we can add, so we had up to 5 for standing death, if I remember right. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. And again, I'm not going to rewire the entire thing. I just want to do enough for you to get the idea of how it works. So now for the aim, we can add the aim's iron sights. And for the death, we'll put in all those death animations that we used. And we'll compile that. So now we have multiple entries, so this demonstration will be a little bit more telling. So now we need to get the individual entries of the struct so we can plug in our movement blend space. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and break the Anim struct. We're going to take movement and plug it right into there. Oops, something broke. Oh, you know why it broke? Because there is no default settings for our Anim struct. And in the previewer, it's not actually talking to the pawn. So what we can do is we can set some defaults. Now, of course, this is for preview only, but we can actually use this preview mode and then push these changes to the defaults. And again, this is just for previewing, because once the game runs, it's going to query the pawn for the data. And if I hit apply, I'll actually push those defaults to the actual variables. And so we should be working. So it's going to pull it from that variable now. So let's look at how we can handle that array now that we've got that switched to array. As you saw here, we plugged in 5 individual animations. Let's go ahead and actually there's a couple ways we can do this. We can actually set this as a pin, just right there, and then like we did the first time, we'll get the struct. We'll break that. And then since this is an array, we can do a get on that and plug in each individual one that way. See, there's a get 0. I'll do this. I'm going to do a get 1. But another thing that we could do is we can actually pull all this out. We need to keep one of these play anims in. But let's kill all this, and we'll kill this, and we'll kill that. So if you remember, when we go into this state, we pick an index by random. Well, that index can also be used to index the array. So instead of getting each element individually, we can just get the one element we need. We're basically using this as a conversion node, if you want to think of it that way. And then we plug it into the sequencer. So this way we can manage our animation table with an array of values. And as you can see, this is way simpler to hook up. In fact, we can even do one better. Let's go back to our event graph. Now you can see here we got a random integer in range between 0 and 4 because we have 5 elements in the array. But what if we wanted to change that array? We wanted to remove items or add items. We would have to go through and remember to change this hard-coded number. Well, now that it's an array, we can actually utilize that and keep it dynamic. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this, we're going to break it again. We'll come out from the array and we're going to get its length. Now remember, arrays are 0 based, so if there's 5 elements you want to go 1 through 4, so we want to subtract 1. And then we'll plug that into the max. So that way just cleaning it up a little bit so it's a little easier to see. So this way, if we change the size of the array, either we grow it or we shrink it, doesn't matter which way, this will not break. The other way it would have broken unless we remembered to go through and manually change that number. Now we don't have to worry about it. It's just going to do it automatically. So this is one way that you can get data in and out without having to manually set it up each and every time. And now we don't really need this child Anim blueprint that we had anymore. So now what we can do is we have player character here. We can duplicate that. We can use this as a child. And then come to the Anim struct and change it here. So instead of movement iron sights, we'll go movement hips. Instead of aim iron sights, we'll go aim hips. So now this version of the character is using different animations. And this can also be extremely handy in the case of our guy here who's different proportions. So he would need possibly a different animation set to make him look correct, either artistically or technically. And then again, we would just populate that Anim struct. So that's two different ways that we can basically reuse the same animation blueprint. We can either take the original, create a child of it, and then override the animations within that blueprint, or we can set up a variable such as an Anim struct, populate that on a per character basis, and simply have the Anim struct read in the data once it's initialized, so it will be playing the correct one. We can customize our characters even further by using post-process Anim blueprints or sub-Anim instances, and we'll get to that next.